Today we're diving deep into the European economy and specifically going to be looking at it through the lens of German economist Heiner Flassbeck.
Okay.
His work is really interesting because it kind of challenges some conventional wisdom, and
Right.
I think you'll see why.
Yeah.
One of his most striking statements is, there is no saving without debt.
Yeah, that's definitely one that kind of makes you stop and think, for sure.
Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive at first, right?
Yeah.
But when you start to consider like the whole picture of an economy, it begins to make a little more sense.
Right.
Flassbeck, he's not talking about, personal finances when he says that.
Right.
He's talking about entire economies. So for every entity that saves, there has to be another one that's borrowing. Imagine if everyone in a whole economy decided to hoard their money all at the same time. Like, what would happen? Spending would just totally plummet, businesses would start failing,
Right.
and economic growth would stagnate.
Right.
So debt in a healthy economy, it's actually like the lifeblood. It keeps money moving, allows businesses to invest, create jobs, and, make progress.
So Flassbeck argues that Germany's economic policies, particularly its emphasis on this low wage growth and reaching a trade surplus, have kind of pushed other European countries into this debtor role. How did that work?
Well, so a big part of his argument is this thing called unit labor costs.
Okay.
He actually says that nothing explains inflation better than unit labor costs.
Yeah.
Unit labor costs are wages relative to productivity in each country. So basically, it's looking at how much a country pays its workers to produce one unit of whatever they're outputting.
Right.
In Germany, with its big focus on keeping wages down and maximizing productivity, it keeps its unit labor costs and, as a result, inflation really low.
So essentially, that would make their goods more competitive in the international market because they're able to keep those prices lower than other European countries.
Exactly. Other European countries, they're forced to try and compete with these low prices that Germany's got. And they face a tough choice.
Right.
They struggle to keep their own industries going. They see unemployment going up. And often they end up having to take on more debt to try to stimulate their economies. It kind of creates this cycle where Germany, trying to be strong, by keeping wages down and exporting a lot, it actually ends up weakening its neighbors.
So it's almost like a zero-sum game in a way.
Yeah, that's kind of Flassbeck's point, yeah.
And Flassbeck points to the Greek debt crisis as like a prime example of this.
Exactly. Greece couldn't devalue its currency because it was using the euro.
Right.
So they were forced into these really harsh austerity measures that just crippled their economy. And the structure of the eurozone itself, with everyone using the same currency but having such different economic policies, it just makes these imbalances even worse.
So while Germany prospers by keeping wages and prices low, other eurozone countries are left dealing with the fallout.
That's Flassbeck's argument. He says this system just isn't sustainable in the long run. Germany being strong, focusing on exports and suppressed wages, it leads to instability and resentment within the eurozone.
So this raises the big question, right? Like, what are the alternatives?
Yeah.
Does Flassbeck offer any solutions?
Well, he doesn't give a simple, easy fix, but he does point out some key things that need to change. He thinks there needs to be a more coordinated approach to wages within the eurozone.
Okay.
So instead of each country just doing its own thing, there should be some way to make sure that wages across the whole bloc rise in a way that makes sense, in line with overall productivity growth and inflation targets for the entire currency area.
Right.
That would help prevent these imbalances we've been talking about, where Germany's low wages are undercutting everyone else.
So you're talking about a eurozone-wide collective bargaining agreement of sorts?
Yeah, I mean, it might sound kind of radical, but the eurozone is pretty unique, right? It's like a monetary union, but not a fiscal union. So they all share a currency, but they have really different economic structures and policies.
Right.
This tension that's built in, it means you need some creative solutions,
That's right.
ones that go beyond just the traditional economic models.
So wage coordination is one piece of the puzzle. What else does Flassbeck recommend?
Well, he also says the EU needs to rethink its fiscal rules. Right now, the focus is all on keeping government debt low.
Right.
And he argues that's just too narrow of a focus. It doesn't really address the underlying issues, the causes of the economic imbalances.
Right.
Instead of punishing countries for having high debt, the focus should be on helping them grow in a sustainable way, and promoting investment.
So basically helping them build healthy economies
Yeah.
where debt is a tool to be used strategically, not just a last resort.
Exactly. Like Flassbeck challenges this idea that everyone should be aiming for a trade surplus all the time.
Okay.
He actually thinks countries with strong economies like Germany should be encouraged to import more from their neighbors. That would help boost demand within the eurozone as a whole and create more of a balance.
It seems kind of counterintuitive, right? We're so used to hearing about how important exports are.
I know, right?
But Flassbeck is saying imports can actually help stabilize things.
Yeah, it's all about understanding how interconnected these economies are, especially within a currency union like the eurozone.
Right.
Flassbeck reminds us that policies don't happen in a vacuum. They create ripple effects that impact other countries too.
Right.
His work is like a call to look beyond just narrow national interests and try to build a more balanced and sustainable system.
So it really brings us back to that initial statement of Flassbeck's. There is no saving without debt. It's not just an economic principle. It's about how interconnected we all are, especially in a currency union like the eurozone. Why should someone outside of Europe care about this, though? What's in it for them?
Well, the eurozone is a huge player in the global economy, right? So whether it's stable or not affects all of us. These imbalances that Flassbeck is talking about, if they don't get fixed, they could lead to more crises, not just in Europe, but potentially worldwide.
And we've seen in the past how those crises can have a cascading effect, right? Impacting trade investment and even political stability globally.
Absolutely. Understanding these dynamics, being aware of how interconnected the global economy is and really thinking critically about the policies that shape our world is crucial.
Yeah.
It's not just for economists and policymakers, it's for everyone.
It's about realizing that economics is not just some abstract idea. It's about the choices we make, the systems we create, and the real impact those things have on people's lives.
Yeah.
So as we dig deeper into Flassbeck's analysis, one big question comes up. If the current economic model of the eurozone is unstable, what are the alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't lay out like a perfect solution or anything, but he definitely makes you think about different models, right?
Right.
Like, could a more integrated fiscal union work,
Yeah.
where eurozone members share more resources and responsibilities? Or maybe there are even like more radical approaches out there.
Right.
We need to be open to exploring new ideas. These are big questions with huge implications.
Yeah, and it really gets to that point that in our globalized world, we are all interconnected.
Absolutely.
What one country does with its economic policies can have an impact across continents.
For sure.
And it can affect the lives of people far beyond its borders.
Yeah.
Flassbeck's analysis, it's like a call to action. We need to think beyond just our own national interests.
Yeah.
And really consider how our choices impact the whole. It's about striving for a more balanced and sustainable global economy.
Exactly. I think it's crucial for everyone to engage in these conversations. We have to critically look at the economic models we're using and demand policies that create stability and shared prosperity.
It's really about recognizing the power we have as individuals.
Right.
To shape a more just and equitable world for everyone.
It's about taking that responsibility seriously.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the complexities of the European economy.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
And a huge thanks to Heiner Flassbeck for his thought-provoking work, which has really helped us see these issues in a new light.
Yeah, definitely.
To our listeners, keep asking those tough questions, keep pushing for a better future, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.